Hello and welcome to another episode of the Stale Popcorn Podcast. I'm your host, Steven, and with me, as always, is my co host who has the most, Christopher.
I do have the most, and thanks for the introduction. I think
You're
last
welcome.
episode you introduced me as friend and not co-host, and I was getting a little worried, not gonna
Oh,
lie.
okay.
I was thinking you were gonna replace me. You wouldn't do anything like that, would you, Steve?
Heaven forbid. No.
Okay.
You're under contract, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I clocked in. I gotta get my 40 hours this week, so.
Dune Part 2 is coming out, so we thought we'd revisit with Dune Part 1. Now, I'll preface this by saying one of us is a fan of this movie and one of us has some qualms. So we'll go into it and just go in, review it, and talk about it for a bit. But I'll give you a little, for those of you who haven't seen the movie, and why would you be listening if you haven't seen it? If you haven't seen this and you're listening to it, thanks for listening. But I thought we'd go over the plot just a little bit and then we'd share our thoughts. How about that? How's that sound, Christopher?
I think that sounds fine. I mean, we do that every single episode, so hopefully, if they're followers, they come to expect this. But
Yeah,
if you
hopefully they get
haven't
it.
seen it, there's going to be quite a bit of spoilers, so I'm just warning so that you can't get mad. And also, the movie came out like 3 years ago, so
Sure,
I
for
think
sure.
we have the rights to do this.
Sure. So some people might have been deterred from this movie or from this concept because they hear Dune and they think, "Ah, sandworms. It's complicated. It's politics and just sounds like a lot of mumble jumble to the average layman." And there, to the extent I agree with that, but to give you a quick little summary, it takes place in the not too distant future, only 8,000 years into the future. Duke Lelo Atreides, ruler of planet Caladan, he is assigned by the Emperor to replace another house. So in this world, there are houses, great houses, noblemen who will rule these planets for generations, and there's an overarching ruler or emperor who is assigning all these houses to rule over certain planets. And one day, the emperor sends his people to go to Caladan and tell Duke Leto Atreides that he has to now rule over the planet Arrakis. Now, Arrakis is a harsh desert planet, which is home to the spice melange, a very valuable psychotropic substance that people just get high off and it's very valuable. It's the key, if you will, to interstellar travel. That's how people um, they travel, interstellarly, if you will. So, House Atreides is assigned to go to the planet of Arrakis, and long story short, it's a trap because the Emperor ain't favors. He don't go and favor Luke Atreides and his family. He wants to wipe them out. So he sends them there basically to die, to kill them all off from Vladimir Harko. How do you pronounce it? Harkonnen?
Ah,
Harkonnen.
I have no
And
idea.
I guess that's basically the setup for this movie. Um, yeah, that's basically it.
Okay. So, just to get you guys a little, background, this is a 2.5 hour film that he basically described the whole plot in what, 2 minutes here?
Sure.
So, would you say in this film there's a bit of filler, I might say?
Listen, Christopher, on that point, I got to disagree with you right off the bat because I'll say it is a long movie. If you're a TikTok brained little individual who can't stay focused on a movie for more than a couple hours, I'm talking this movie does great world building. That's what's most of this movie. It's building a universe and a world that is unique and specific. So that's why I like it. So it sounds like you got qualms that it's a
Well,
little long.
speaking of TikTok, on TikTok, I guess I'm not a huge TikToker, but yeah, they have the short little clips, and if you don't do anything, it'll just repeat it. Is that how it
Sure. Yeah.
works?
Hmm.
Um, Zendaya turning her face. I think they showed that TikTok like 5 or 6 times in this film.
It was a vision, Christopher.
Well,
It was Paul's vision.
I wrote down, I had to put this in words just to really express myself, how I felt. Picture this. This is only the beginning. Echoes through the theater as the credits roll. And you turn to your neighbor with a sense of anticipation, only to realize that those words are an epitome of irony, because in the last 2.5 hours is not a grand culmination, but rather a meandering journey through sand and spectacle, devoid of any satisfying resolution or payoff. As Anakin Skywalker once lamented, I hate sand. It's coarse, it's irritating, and it gets everywhere. And I couldn't help but echo those sentiments after enduring the marathon that is Dune. It's not just the sand that's bothersome, it's the lack of substance beneath the surface, the absence of coherence amidst the visual splendor. So, I wasn't a huge fan, I guess I could say.
It went right for the jugular,
I'm
didn't you? There,
sorry.
jeez. Oh man,
Now, you've seen this film a couple, 3 times,
I saw it
correct?
twice. I saw it twice in theaters. Correct.
And did you read any of the books or anything?
I've tried to read the books a couple times. I've probably like three times, but I'm an absolute troglodyte when it comes to reading. So I'm really stupid. So something like this is right up my alley. You know, just watching people move on a screen. That's more my
That's more of
speed.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It seemed to me, because I have never read the books, but it seemed like a movie that's made for people that read the books and have a better understanding of what's going on, because
Hmm.
there's just like a lot of things that I just felt confused basically the whole movie about something. Like,
Yeah.
for
It is.
example, spice. You described it as it's something that makes you live longer, also apparently gets you high, and
Hmm.
also used for intergalactic space travel. Like, what?
Yeah.
How do those relate?
It's minor details. You know?
And
Just like
it's the
coke.
most valuable resource.
Listen, I liken it to like cocaine. You know, it gets you high as a kite. It sends you on a trip, and
Makes you
also
live
just like cocaine,
longer.
makes you live longer. And just like cocaine, you can put it in your car and travel to another dimension. So it all works out to me.
Yeah, it
I
just,
mean,
I don't know.
it's science fiction. You got to, there's parts of
I
Star Wars that
understand
don't
that.
make a lick of sense, but
Speaking
you
of
want
Star
more
Wars,
explanation.
this
Okay, speaking of Star Wars,
these books, they came out what, the 60s? How old are these how old
yeah,
are
they're
these
pretty old.
books? It seems like obviously the books came out before Star Wars, but I've never seen, I know they made a Dune back in like 85 or whatever. But
Hmm.
there was a lot of visuals that were similar to the Star Wars movies, such as you have the Attack of the Clones little slug beetle thing that sneaks in through the wall trying to murder a prince, if you will, instead of a princess, that he stops. And then you also got like the uh, the villain bald guy that's a bad guy. He has the little line under his lip like Amidala. You got the main villain is this like bald, ugly guy that can float, aka Snoke. You got I just feel like there's a it's a little copy some, I dare say.
Well, you can say that, but I got my toes curled up in the little fists because what you've just said is absolute blasphemy, Christopher. First of all, first of all, George Lucas is an absolute creative colonizer, if you ask me. He's just picks and chooses what he likes from other. Like, if you look at Star Wars, a lot of that stems from Dune, Frank Herbert stuff. The main story of Bloody Episode 4 or Star Wars at the time, 1977, that's just a ripoff of Seven Samurai. He's just ripping off other people and repurposing and repackaging it. But no, yeah, I think you had it backwards. This is the movie that, or at least the source material that inspired those things.
Yeah.
So I think they copied it
Oh,
from
I
Dune.
understand that
I don't
But
think
the
you do.
visually, do you think they're like in the book? He's like, oh, this guy has a thing on his lip, and then they, do that in the movie, like Amidala here, or
Maybe George did a little nod to June
I think
with
so.
Padme's little lip. Sure.
But
If it's a homage, then sure. But I don't know if it was. I think he just liked that, so saw that, and Dune was like, "I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna put on Padme."
I think you're right here. This wasn't like something that super bugged me. We're just on the topic of
Sure,
that.
sure.
But yeah, that's not really a main argument. But going back to like, it feels like the movie is made for those that read the books because there's just so many things that I feel like they glance over, and I'm like, what is going on here? Like with the whole spice thing, like
Hmm.
they'd say it, but it still doesn't really make sense. You got like the guy that tries to kill him tries to kill
Paul.
Paul,
Hmm.
Attack of the Clones style, and they just like find his body in the wall, and they're like, he's been here for 6 weeks or something. Like, Did they kill him, or how?
Yeah,
Like, how does that work?
I think.
Like, sorry, go ahead. Can
Oh no,
can you
I,
answer that since you're the
I was
expert
just gonna
here?
say. Well, my title is Chief Executive Historian of Dune novels, but no, I was just say like it's kind of directed like Chris Nolan, where you have to kind of puzzle some pieces together, and assume that yeah, that guy was hiding in the thing for 6 weeks, and they when they found him, they just curb stomped his head with extreme prejudice. So it is a dense source material they're working from. It's a thick boy. It's a thick boy book. So they got to fit a lot of material into this 2.5 hour movie, um,
But they
which
don't do it's not one full book, is it? Does it end in the book, or they split the book in half? Because this obviously is part one of a movie.
so I think part one and part two is the whole Dune first book.
Okay.
Yeah. So that should tell you how dense and rich in history and caricature this book has.
Well, this book is 896 pages according to my Google search.
That's a
And
pretty
they
thick
split.
boy.
That's pretty thick, but how many pages are those Harry Potter books?
Ah, you're right. You know,
And
man.
they get that in a movie in less time.
I'll rebuttal with take what's its name, the Goblet of Fire. I think that's the biggest book. They had three previous books to work off of and build that world, whereas this one doesn't have the three previous books.
That's a fair point. But that is a good point. I'll give you that. But I believe
Yes.
the biggest book, most pages, is Order of the Phoenix, and guess how many pages that is?
Ooh.
896, the same amount as Dune. And they
Well,
did that in
okay.
one film, which, but
Fair enough.
yeah,
They're not
there's
they're not building worlds though. They're
but
in bloody London, England.
but what world are they? All right, they built a world where there's different what houses. You got you know, your Targaryens, you got you got your Lannisters, and you got your what are them Winterfell folks called again? The Snow, not the Snows, the Starks, and someone else, and then the Empire wants, yeah, the Starks dead. Like, you don't really need to spend that long getting
All
over
right.
it.
Well. Let me ask you this: what
Sure.
parts did you think that dragged on a little bit?
Well,
That was
it's
so insufferable that you had to sit through the movie.
it's what probably the first 30 minutes they're on their home planet, which is
Hmm.
it's like a water planet. It's like a normal planet.
It's Kaladin, the ocean planet.
Okay, it's an ocean planet. Within like the first couple minutes, the guys come down saying, "Hey, you're gonna get shipped out to the sand," and they're like, "Okay," and then it's just like, "All right, let's stand over my dad's grave here. Oh, I want to be a pilot, and I wanted to be a, I'm like, all right, like I get why they put it in there, but." it's a 2.5 hour film. I feel like you don't necessarily like that's not as important as you know. Oh, maybe let's talk about why this guy's eyes just went in the back of his head and he's like can count everyone. You know, do they ever address that?
I think so. Okay, I get what you're saying now because if you read the books, he's a that guy.
Like a
He's a men.
warg,
Yeah,
he
he's a
can control
mentat. So he's a.
animals. What?
If you let me finish a
Sorry,
gosh dang
he's a med
sentence, no.
pack or whatever. Okay, go on,
He's
go on.
no, I'm just joking. He's a mentat, so he's a supercomputer. Um, and when he looks in the back of his head, he sees a little screen. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just making that, but no, he's just a supercomputer. So I think that was the visual representation to see like, oh, he answered a question that he has to like calculate real quick. Later on in the movie, it shows him like he's got like a upload link where he like touches the back of his neck and he's like talking. So like it could do a little bit.
That was an
I
upload link? I thought that was like he had a
like a
built-in,
communication link.
yeah, like
Yeah, sorry.
walkie-talkie going
Yeah,
on
yeah.
back there.
If you're not like really, really focused on and miss some of the details like that, like it could be like, wait, why? It could be a little confusing. So I do agree with you on there. Like it was made for fans of the book or who have experience with the source material because there are a lot of things where you're like, wait, what just happened? So
Yeah.
I'll give you that a little bit.
Well, like, so they don't, because when he touched it, like, I get he was, like, talking to other people, but it seemed like it was more of just, like, because this takes place in, like, what, 10,082 or whatever it is.
Hmm.
So I just assume, like, it's future. They got some sort of thing they could put it, like, it seems like more of a walkie-talkie was what me, a layman, was understanding, not that he's a human computer that can calculate
Yeah,
real calculations real quick. It's like something like that. I feel like you could spend what, 2 sentences, oh, so and so, great calculator, huh, computer man,
but they
instead
did
of
that,
like, oh,
Christopher.
grandpa died from fighting a bull. Like, all right.
All right. No, I get it. They got to establish because spoiler alert, they got to be sad when my boy Oscar Isaac dies. So there has to be some sort of connection between his son to be able to emote all of his emotions. Or like, okay, because if that scene wasn't in there, then it would have just been, hey, my dad just died. I don't care because we've never seen the relationship on screen. So the little moments like that. What else
Fine.
you got,
How
Chris?
about other? How about the scene where they land on the sand planet and then they just show them walk? I'm pretty sure they show them walk from the plane all the way, and it's just like a
Real
good,
time.
yeah, just walking. Oh, there's people. Wow. All right, walking, and then every single time they get in a helicopter, they're like, well, let's just show them, flipping all the levers. Let's see all those wings, get in motion. And it seemed like they do that every single time. Where I'd say, I'll be honest, like the first time you see them fly, like it's pretty cool looking at the wings, sputtering,
Sure. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you don't need to do it every single time.
All right.
You,
I
you
get
read
that.
you, you read me here.
I I smell what you're stepping in. But the thing is like I think they were real proud of the kind of world that they created. Those ornithopters,
Oh,
I think they're a fantastic design if you ask me.
what
And
a
so
stupid name though.
I
Ornithopter? Is that what it's called?
I thought it was a pretty cool name. I don't
Ornithopter.
let
Some
me
of
push up
these
my glasses here.
the names, it's just like the most random names. It's like, oh, we got an ornithopter, so Liet, Stilgar,
I'll give you
Chani, Leto, and then they're like, let's make the main person's name Paul. I'm like,
Paul.
what?
It's got to be easy to pronounce. Yeah.
Paul. All right, makes sense. Um, but
No, so
yes,
you're saying if they would have trimmed out just a little bit of fat here and there,
I think they could
it
have trimmed a good amount. Like, I get you're building the world, but it's like a 2.5 hour, and it seems like they're really going in for those visuals, which I will admit they're good visuals. Like, and they got a
yeah.
good soundtrack here. Like,
Hmm.
those are the main thing, but it's kind of got that Avatar effect where it's like you remember everyone hyping up Avatar, and they're like, you got to
Hmm.
see it, and it's like one of those you see it in a theater, and you're like, oh, that's cool visuals, and like, he's really, feeling himself, kind of flexing, if you will. But
Mm.
then if you watch it just on a TV, you're like, that's cool. Definitely the best parts of this movie, but a movie actually needs a good plot and stuff to happen for it to be
You're
engaging.
talking Avatar, right? That doesn't have the good plot.
Well, both of these,
How dare you? No,
because
hold on. I hold on. I got a story about Avatar. If you'll indulge me for a
I'll
second.
indulge you.
So Avatar 2009 came out, and everyone and my mom, including my mom, was like, "We should go see this. Like, this looks like a good movie." So instead, I went with my friends because going with your friends to the theater is a lot cooler than going with your mom.
Hmm.
We went and saw. We saw the 3D, the IMAX, the whole 9 yards. Spent like a stupid amount for teenagers at the time. And then when we get home, my friends dropped me and my friend off, and my mom locked the door. And I didn't have a phone at the time because I was just a kid, and I slept outside in the rocks with my friend. So that's
That's,
the memory I'll always have associated
wow,
with
what a great
Avatar. Just
memory.
sleeping outside. Yep. Anyway,
Yeah,
sorry.
no, Avatar, it was one of those I never saw in theater because I was young and poor, and my mom already watched it without me and wouldn't pay for me to go. So I had to wait till it came on like FX on TV, and I was watching it, and I'd
Sure.
have to wait, every 10 minutes for commercials. And it was one of those like the only time I ever saw it was not in theaters, it was on a TV, and I was like, so I basically was watching it for the plot because the visuals obviously aren't as in your face if you're watching it on a TV in your living room here.
Sure.
And I was like, I didn't really like it. I was like, but then I saw Avatar 2 in theaters, and I'm like, I get it. It's nice visuals. You're in a theater, got nice, surround sound. And like, that's kind of the vibe I got for this movie, where like, I think it would be, it's a lot better in theaters, but
Did you not see Dune in theaters?
I did not.
Ugh, well, there's your problem,
I
man.
know that, but
That's all you
again,
had to say.
you you well, this movie came straight to streaming, if you recall. This was
I
part
do,
of that
yeah.
HBO Max COVID year
Debacle,
where they
yeah.
were just
Hmm.
going straight to HBO Max. Or sorry, I should say Max. They've since
Oh, yeah.
HBO Max is I dead named them, and I apologize, um, but yeah,
All right.
it's kind of like that. How that kind of the vibe I got. But
Hmm.
as far as like you're saying, it's setting up this world. It takes, let's see, first 25 minutes they're at their other planet, like nothing really happens. You get him talking to his dad. Oh, grandpa died bullfighting or whatever. Oh, we're gonna you know and then they get to the sand, and then they're like, oh, you know what, let's talk about this guy watering these trees that feed 5 people, and then they later get burned. I'm like, I feel like that has something to do in the book versus the movie.
Hmm.
It's not like that. There's no payoff for it. Like they
Maybe
show
we'll get a
them
payoff in
burning.
part two.
I mean,
You don't
that's
know.
a qualm I have. It's like I'm just basing off of this film,
All right, all right.
and
That makes sense.
yeah, it takes. I paused the film and I looked, and I think it was an hour 10 in, which is almost halfway through before something exciting happens, and even that is just like the worm swallowing a building.
Hold on. I take umbrage with the fact that you said it's boring up until that part. Probably my favorite scene in the whole movie is when Paul goes in to see the Bene Gesserit and does the test. Do you
He
remember
puts
that
his
part?
hand in a box,
He puts his hand in the box,
which they
Chris.
don't ever. They're like, "Oh, this box will make you hurt real bad. Don't move, or else I'm gonna kill you." And then they just leave, and you're like, "What? What was that about?" Oh, he might be a chosen one.
He is, in fact, there was a test to see if he was indeed the Kwisatz Haderach and the Messiah, if you will, to save and unite the people.
It was very integral to the story, Christopher.
This is
Gosh,
another
dang it!
thing that hack George Lucas stole from them with the chosen one. Wow, you've
Every,
convinced me. George Lucas, what a hack.
what a degenerate.
Yeah,
No,
like
anyway.
that. It was just like it just came out of nowhere. Like another, I guess, qualm I have is it feels like they're basing it off a book, but he's just like skipping chapter to chapter, and there's not really that nice transition because it's just like, oh, oh, they tell him that, they're moving, and then all of a sudden his mom wakes him up in the middle of the night, come with me, and then he does
Mm.
this, goes to the whatever, do the box training, and then they leave, and then you just like, you see him like one other time, and it just seemed like kind of hacky, not, like it just like choppy, I guess I should say, like, oh, let's do this, all right, well, let's move on to this, not really smooth, if you will. I like a
So I
nice
think
smooth movie.
a smooth transition. So I think the problem here, and what I'm hearing from you, is that there seems to be a lot of like maybe subtle setting up. It's definitely a part one. I think a lot of these things, when part two comes out, you'll be like,
Ah, he stuck his hand in the box. Yes, I understand fully now.
Yeah.
um, I think that's just the pitfalls of splitting a movie in half, honestly. And
Well,
to do Dune justice, you had to split it in half, in my opinion. Because if you seen Dune 1984, you'd be like, dang, they should have split that boy in half. You know what I'm saying?
hmm well, I will admit I'm excited to watch part two, just because I'm like there has to be some sort of payoff, right? But
I know why you're excited to see part two, if I may intercede here.
yes,
I think you're excited to see part two to see more Zendaya, if I'm not mistaken.
you know, I, I will say when this movie came out back in 21 or whatever, I was on a Zendaya, high or whatever. Greatest Showman. I guess that's basically a Spider-Man,
Sure, yeah.
But watching it the second time and just seeing so many of those visions of her, I was just like, I don't actually ever want to see her again. If I see another flash forward of Zendaya, I might end my life. Like, it was just, I can't do this. So I'm going to rebuttal that here.
All right. All
Um,
right.
but yeah, it felt like it's setting up, it's a part one. It felt like on a TV show. I was it reminds me of The Walking Dead. Do you ever watch that show?
Yeah, yeah.
You remember that
Mm-hmm.
awful, like, season two on the farm where nothing really happens? You're like, oh,
We're still on the
here's,
farm, huh?
yep, still on the farm here. It kind of just felt like that where I was like, just waiting for something exciting to happen.
All
But
right.
you go like an hour in and you get a worm, like, oh, that's kind of fun, but that's kind of it. And then they do they get ambushed or whatever, like, all right, it's picking up here.
Mm-hmm.
But it just like, it doesn't make sense to me because they were expecting to get attacked, right?
Sure, yeah.
And they're all like, oh, don't trust anyone. And then they're just like act totally surprised that they get attacked in the middle of the night.
Who
Oh
could have
man,
foreseen this
wow!
occurrence happening?
And then and then also like the doctor,
Mm-hmm.
he's kind of the one that infiltrates from the inside, right? And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, he's got my wife torn to pieces, and he'll
Mm-hmm.
set her free if I do this. But if she's already torn to pieces, isn't she dead? And then he goes to the guy at the end. He's like, "Oh, you said you'd set me free, and he's like, "Yeah, I said you'd be with her," and then just kills the doctor. Where I'm like, "What?" It just, am I confused? Like, it seemed like his wife's already dead if she's torn to pieces, and then he said, "Oh, you're gonna be with her," and he kills him. So, like, what was the point for the doctor? You know what I mean? Like, what was his point?
Calculating.
Um,
Oh,
I don't know, man.
oh, are you
If
saying
I
you didn't understand something that
hold
happened?
on, hold on. It's been a while, and it's been a while.
It's been a while.
Um, no, if I remember, I don't remember him saying that. Like, oh, my wife's in pieces. Or in
He
my
said it,
head,
man. I'm not
all right,
crazy.
all right, all right. But it makes sense that he thinks his wife is still alive. If he doesn't, then you got me on that one. I don't
Yeah, it
know.
seemed like when he finally, like, he confronts him, he's like, "Oh, let me be with my wife," and he's like, "Okay," and then I'll let you be with your wife, and then kills him.
So you're saying that Doctor Yue knew his wife was dead and just betrayed him for no reason?
Well, I don't. That's what I'm trying
Chris,
to
that
figure
that doesn't
out.
make sense. It just doesn't make
It
sense.
doesn't. Also, There's this scene where right before Paul goes into your favorite scene where he puts his hand in the box,
Mm-hmm.
and his mom is like, oh, "Go see the doctor real quick," and the doctor is like, "All right." He puts his hands on his head, and you're like, "What the heck?" He's like, "His heart is as good as ever," or something, and
Yeah.
you're just like, "Can he? He could read their heart through their mind? Like what?" Like they never
So
elaborate on that. For
if I
yes,
may, yeah, okay. So yes, it's probably tailored to those who know the book, know the source material. But just like the Mentat who can do the calculation, you see this Doctor Yue, who's obviously the doctor, and he has the ability to basically scan Paul. Um, Now, I don't know if it's some sort of technology or magic what's going on there, but in my mind, I knew right away, like, okay, he's scanning him, he's checking him, and everything. I don't know why you had a hard time understanding that.
well, I figured it, but I feel like it could elaborate a little bit. You know.
Well, then what's your problem? If you got it, what's your problem?
Well, I'm just making guesses here, but I thought it was funny. He was like, his heart is as good as it's ever been, as he's just like feeling this poor boy's head, you know?
His mom's like, sure, I'll take your word for it,
All
Doctor.
right.
Doctor. Like, oh my
Yeah.
god. All right. Okay, I
But
get how
then,
little things like that could add up for you
yeah,
to
I
be
mean, I
like,
wrote down a whole list, but I don't want to go through them all, you know? But,
get, give me some other ones then.
well, let's see, like the shields. So they have these force field shields that they have on their bodies, but they also have them on their buildings. But they
Hmm.
don't work most of the time. Like they have it on the buildings, and then when they get attacked, it just seems like they blow up pretty much
Wrong.
instantly. What?
Wrong. Hold on, I gotta stop you there. So that's a cool. I think it's a cool idea, cool technology they have. They have these shields that because in this future, guns are superfluous, pretty much because of these shields, right?
Hmm.
So
Which they
they
don't say in the movie, by the way. I figured that was what it was for,
sure,
but they never actually explain it. But go
all
on.
right, but yeah. So the reason the guns are useless is because of these shields, and they block anything coming at you at a fast pace. So
Not
bullets will just
anything.
well, if you'd let me finish, Chris. It's if you go penetrate the shield slowly, then you can get through and kill your enemy. And to me, that makes a lot of sense. I think it makes for some creative and cool ideas, cool action sequences, something that I hadn't seen before. You know, I think it's cooler than just fighting with swords, and you got to be really purposeful in your attacks and everything. So I think it's a cool concept.
No, you kind of glanced over the whole building one I was talking
Oh,
about.
the building, same thing, same thing. If you shoot at buildings, like it's going to be pointless. But the Harkonnens, they had designed specifically bombs that will slowly penetrate the outer shell or the shield and then go into the buildings
So they're
and blow them up.
pointless. The
So
shield
you
is
got, I
pointless
guess
for the
you got to have
buildings.
specific
They had never heard of
ammunition.
that technology before.
No, only bad guys have that technology, Chris. Gosh dang it.
Yeah, I figured it was the bullet shield thing.
Hmm.
Because I was like, no one has guns. But yeah, they shoot the little dart things that go through it, which, you know, it makes sense the slower. I do remember them saying it. But, and then there's something like they're on the sand, and someone's like, why don't they use shields on the sand? And they're like, oh, it irritates the worms. They go
Sure.
savage.
Hmm.
Like, why?
Because the worms, the sandworms, are very sensitive to sound.
And those make
So
sound?
yeah, I guess. Jeez,
I do like the idea of the personal
it
shields.
doesn't sound like you do, Chris.
It's
Gosh.
just like it. I'm just like watching them fight, and it's like take a R.I.P. Johnny Utah. Sorry, Hannah Montana. What was George Washington? What was his name? Duncan,
Did you have?
Idaho. Yeah, that's it.
I thought you had a stroke there for a
I was
second.
trying to. I get my people with states as their last name. Robert California. You know. What was his name? Idaho Duncan? Duncan, Idaho?
Duncan, Idaho. Yeah.
Like he gets stabbed, like he's fighting, and I'm pretty sure he gets stabbed at a normal, like a fast speed, and it pierces him. Like, is it like battery powered, where like after a couple hits it gives up? You know what I mean?
Maybe they just got the better of him because I think. Are you talking about when they got ambushed and he's not wearing armor or anything,
No, like talking when he's
or
fighting
later
them and he
when he
dies and
dies?
he's got his armor on.
Well, if you recall, it's like 4 or 5 against
I
one
know,
there.
but like, did the guy that stabbed him is like, hold on, let me go real slow and
Yeah,
poke him in the back? You know,
yeah, sure, yeah,
is that
that's
what
how it happened.
happens?
You know,
Um, but let's see what else I got here. I think those are the main random questions. I went over the spice. Oh, the mother. She has this power. She's got this Jedi mind trick thing where she can
the
just
voice.
she talks in a voice and they obey her, and she does it so that the people kill themselves on their little
Hmm.
Yagatragma or whatever you call those helicopters,
Yeah,
Omitron or something.
ornithopters.
And then she just never uses it again. You'd think like, oh, maybe my boy, you know, Johnny Utah or whatever's dying over here. Why don't I just speak a little voice here, help him out, you know? Or maybe, oh, I go. She runs into when they get to the what are the little Aboriginal indigenous
the
people called Freemen or
the
something?
Fremen,
Fremen.
yeah. Hmm.
Oh, they're like fighting her. Oh, how about instead of risking my death here, I can just tell him to stop fighting or whatever. You know, like she just never uses it ever again. And I just kind of
Hmm.
like, is there something? I feel like there's something I should know about this voice, but I don't remember them ever mentioning it.
Well, I'll just argue that it's really, really hard to do.
She did it like 4 times and didn't break a sweat in like 30 seconds.
Minor plot hole, I guess. I guess she could have used it sooner and more often. But going back to Harry Potter, same thing could have been said with Bloody Hermione and the Time Turner. You know,
Well, they. I agree with you, but let's not.
or let's not muddy the waters with Harry
Yeah,
Potter lore here. Sorry about that.
we're not. I'm not defending Harry Potter here. You hear
All
me?
right. No, okay, I get it.
Also,
Let me think.
another, or unless you got a idea of this, but another kind of complaint I have is that you don't really. There's not much character development on anyone besides Paul. Like, I'd say, who is your favorite character in this movie? First of all,
I do love me some George Washington, or I mean Duncan, Idaho.
yeah, he's my
uh,
favorite.
yeah.
Which sadly they killed, but like character wise, like he's good at fighting, but he doesn't really have anything else. He likes saying "my boy" or whatever. Hey boy,
so,
or whatever he
so
says.
are you saying the characters lack depth? Is that what you're going for here?
That's what I'm saying. Well, it's like Zendaya says three
Zendaya's
lines in the
barely a
movie, right?
character.
You got
Yeah, I'll give you that.
the dad who you're like, oh, he's a good guy, but I don't really know anything about him. The mom, I'm just like, she is a temptress witch or whatever you call it. Apparently, she's a concubine.
Hmm.
Um, but well, Josh Brolin, you're like, I know he's a general dude, but like what? I don't know anything about him. There's not really
He's a
anything.
general dude.
He's a general dude, but
No, okay, I get that. I think the main character, Paul, who should
mhm.
have the most character development,
Which
does have character development. I'd argue.
yeah, I would argue that. But
All
normally
right.
it's like you Lord of the Rings, like you're understanding like, all right, Frodo's the main character, but you're like, all right, Sam's brave, he's
Mm.
Merry and Pippin, they're kind of silly. You understand these though. You got you know that movie 2.5 hours setting up a universe.
All right. Well,
You understand like 15 different characters and you have a good understanding of who they are, what their motives are.
mhm.
You remember their names versus me having to look up on Wikipedia. Oh yeah, Josh Brolin, obviously Gurney Halleck, of course.
So you're saying Peter Jackson did a better version of interpreting lore and all this stuff to the film than my boy
Yes,
Denny?
I definitely would.
Yeah. I don't think you're wrong. I think Lord of the Rings is a masterclass in all things filmmaking and translation of books to film. This one, I think, it since I don't know if I can argue that.
Well, and obviously, Lord of the Rings, I think most people would probably have that as a, Mount Rushmore, the
The
Citizen
goat,
Kane, if you will, of these
sure,
I guess it's not sci-fi, but fantasy, blah, blah,
yeah,
fictional
book to film
literature. But
adaptation, sure, yeah.
even like a Harry Potter, the first book is it's pretty short. You could read it in a couple hours, and
Hmm.
it's setting up a whole universe and all that. I guess I'll use the movie since we're talking movie. The movie's what, hour and a half, 2 hours, and like you get everything, and there's actual plot, and there's an ending, like there's a payoff at the end. Versus
Hmm.
this, I get they're setting up, but I just feel like he's spending so much on these visuals, which I get. That's Denny V's thing. Blade Runner, Arrival. There, he's just really,
He
he's
likes to take his time as a director, and I appreciate that. If I'm honest with you,
yeah, yeah.
if I could
I
say
hear you.
that's a huge positive for me. I think a lot of other directors. I think actually, I read this earlier that Peter Jackson was actually interested in doing a Dune adaptation. That would have been interesting,
That
but
would have been interesting.
um, I think Denny does a good job at adapting this source material here. Just if I could just gush over the visuals
Oh,
alone.
I'm with you there. I love the visuals.
I absolutely love all the costumes, the design, every detail in there. It seems like there's a lot of passion and love that went into it, which I appreciate going into a film and seeing that things and sets are real and not just filmed on a green screen. I'm looking at you, Avengers Endgame. Bloody when things are done with passion, it shows in a movie. There might be some flaws in it, like we've discussed here, but I ultimately, that passion shows, and that's why I think it has some great merit to it.
Yeah, I agree. Visually, and even like the soundtrack, it's pretty great. Like no
Mhm,
doubt,
mhm.
like those are definitely the positives about the film. But to me, it's just a plot, and it being a part one that just like there's a lot of it's just setting up. It kind of feels like you're watching a show and you watch episode one where it's all right, setting up whatever this is, but then it just ends and you have to wait,
I
two
get
years
that.
till the next part. But saying that, I am excited for part two.
Mhm.
But if I'm just judging based on part one, because obviously I haven't seen part two, like as a movie, it's just kind of frustrating that it just leads up to this and then ends.
Yeah. So for you, do you think your little minor qualms, your little cons outweigh the positives, or do
Um,
you?
Honestly, it'll depend how good the second one is. Like, when I saw this a couple years back and people would ask me if they should watch it, I would tell them not to watch it, wait till the next one comes out, and then you watch them back to back because you're gonna, like, if you're like me,
Gonna have questions and stuff? Yeah.
I first time just as confused, and um, obviously there was no part two coming out anytime soon, and then I
Hmm.
rewatched it again today, and I'm like, all right, it makes a little more sense because I remember some parts there being a sandworm and like, oh, he's only going to see Zendaya for 5 minutes at the end.
Hmm.
Um, but it sets up for part two, which again, I'm going to watch this. I'm going to watch this in theaters, so I'm here for the experience.
Sure. Surely,
And
yes.
I
Yeah.
hope there's some payoff, but if it's still setting up this world, I'm gonna
Well, here's
probably heads will roll.
here's my slight qualm as well, because if we're, and I hate to do this, if we're comparing Lord of the Rings, that is a very clear cut and dry. Here's book one, book two, book three. It told a complete story. Bada boom. There's one main objective with side objectives. However, with Dune, the lore is so dense and everything. When it starts book one, you're like, oh, okay, book one, that's cool. I get it. Paul Atreides. But as the series goes along, it gets very, how should I put this? Very meandering and uh, tangential, if you will, because at one point Paul Atreides becomes half sandworm, half person. you know,
And the what?
Yeah, so like there's parts where the it's kind of like a legacy, like a because most of the books actually don't cover Paul. They cover later, like his children and everything. The books down the line, the Children of Dune. So there's a whole series. There's no like clear cut beginning and end. I mean, there is. It's very long, but like to do that in a movie would be kind of
How
difficult, and
many
that's why.
books are there, if I may ask?
Oh, heavens! I don't know, man. Let me type this.
Quite a bit, huh?
How many? I am doing this one handed. How many Dune books are there? 28.
One-handed, huh?
There are 28 Dune books.
Oh man,
Yeah.
this guy was
So
really onto something here.
yeah, my boy Frank Herbert. But yeah, I think, and that's what makes it difficult to adapt into screen is because there's no clear. Well, there is, but nobody's going to want to watch 28 seasons of Dune. Nobody, no studio's going to want to produce that. So I think
Well,
that's
if they made 28 Airbuds, maybe I'll do 28 Dunes here. One more thing
that's airtight logic.
one more qualm here. Sorry to bring back to the negative.
Shoot,
I didn't really the villain. He didn't do much for me. It was
sure.
it's the fat Skarsgård that can fly, which
Yeah,
they
I have in my notes here Stellan Skarsgård doing his emo Butterbean impression. Um, yeah, he's definitely just a very kind of generic villain. He gets the job done, but I chalk it up to Frank Herbert when he wrote this was that was very villainous in his time, and so we've seen so many different kind of iterations of complex villains shown on screen where it does seem a bit dry, a bit lackluster. So I think there could have been more. He's kind of cool. I like his aesthetic and design, um, but I kind of agree with you there. He's a little bit lackluster.
yeah, he another thing that hack George Lucas stole. He gets like healed in his black Bacta tank in there, healed back to life. But
Oh, that was Stellan just chilling after takes. He's like, "Can I just take a bath in oil
yeah,
real
let me
quick?"
get a nice mud bath here. But another positive, you can't deny star-studded cast.
Star
Timothy,
dash studded.
Rebecca Ferguson, Oscar Isaac,
Josh
Brolin,
Brolin.
Skarsgård, Batista.
I forgot Dave Bautista was in this.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure. Did you recognize that doctor? Whoever the one that's in charge of the sand or the spice thing?
Oh, Doctor Kine.
Pretty sure that's the cook from the Bear.
Don't you dare. Gosh dang it. She's a dead ringer, if I say so myself.
I did that just to get that bit in there, you know. Um,
Oh man.
but
Anyway, no, yeah, fantastic cast. I don't know how they got them all in one room together, but yeah, my boy Timmy on point, Timmy Shalley. I think my favorite actor is. Oh, it's good to see Javier Bardem
oh, that's
and Josh
true.
Brolin share the screen time together. Old Country for No Men. Wait a second.
Ah, that's true.
No Country for Old Men. Sorry, I had a stroke there.
You also had that temptress from Greatest Showman and Zendaya. Great to
Oh
see them
yeah, good to see them on
share a
screen.
room together.
Yeah, or a
And
desert, I should say.
a
Yeah.
desert. Yeah.
Who else?
Also, Momoa was in it. I think I forgot to.
Jason. Yeah,
So great cast,
it's
but
great, fantastic cast.
yeah, movie.
If you could give it a
overall,
rating,
ooh, I think I'm gonna give it like a 6, maybe. Um, if I
listen,
love the
it's
second one and it's got a
it's fine
nice,
that you think that, but you're wrong.
what are you
All right.
giving it? A 10 here?
Oh, at least a 6.1.
Okay, that's fair. I'll get you there here.
No, I think here's my thing. I think I really like it because at the time that was like one of the first movies I saw after COVID. I love going to theaters, and since I couldn't go to the theaters during that time, my wife and I saw Dune, and I was having just a ball of a time, if you will. So I think I have a little nostalgia for it, but also I think it's just a great movie on its own. Fantastic visuals. I love my boy Denis Villeneuve. He has never had a bad movie, if in my opinion. We're talking. Hold on, let me pull up his filmography here. We're
Blade
talking
Runner. I could
Blade
tell it
Runner
for you off.
2049. Okay, go for it.
Enemy,
Mm.
Sicario,
Mm-hmm.
um, Arrival.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do Nightcrawler? Probably not. I
No,
think
he did
that's all.
Prisoners. You ever see
Oh,
Prisoners?
Prisoners. Yeah, that's a great film. That was his
There's a
first one, right? Or does he do anything before
no.
that?
He's done. I don't know if you've seen the movie Incendi. I,
No.
I'm probably mispronouncing that. Um, it's a French film,
Ugh.
I do believe, but it's very good.
You seen it?
Uh, yeah. Don't if you're well, if you want to watch it. But it's a hard movie to watch. But
You're really
it,
selling me. You said it was great, and then you say
it's
it's a hard
it's a
movie.
hard it's a hard movie just because it's very
Emotional.
emotional. Oh, look at that. Jinx, you owe me a soda. But no, yeah. Blade Runner 2049, Arrival, Sicario, Enemy, Prisoners, just one after another.
It says he's a TBA to direct or to produce Dune Prophecy, the television series,
Really?
whatever that means. It's a
Hmm.
prequel. Oh wow, more world building. Can't wait.
Oh boy. Anyway, no, I think if you haven't seen Dune, I think if you follow Chris's advice, it's good. Wait for part two to come out and watch them closely together so that you can get the full story. I think that's a better way to watch them. However, I do agree that seeing it in theater is an experience. If you have the opportunity to go see Dune 2 in theaters, I'd say go see it.
Well, you
But
haven't even seen it yet,
oh,
Steven.
sorry, I meant Dune 1. Dune 1. Because I think
Well,
they were re-releasing it, no?
are they?
Well, I got egg on my face then, don't
I
I?
don't know. They could be.
I don't know. I thought they would. Anyway.
Yeah, I'd say if you want my advice, which I'm sure you all do, and I'm sure Steven's gonna edit this out and put YouTube shorts of me being like, "This movie is terrible," and then all the comments are gonna be like, "This guy should have his podcast rights revoked." But if you're listening this far, um, my advice to you would be wait till next week when we release our Dune Part 2 podcast. In the beginning, I'll do a quick non-spoiler if you should see it. If I say to see it, then you better go see it. If I
And what
say
Chris says is gospel.
what I
So
say is gospel, and that way, and if I say to see it, go ahead, watch part 1, and then go watch part 2 here. But
sure.
if you're listening to me, obviously you can, you're your own man, your own woman. You can do what you will here. But I would just hate for you to waste, 6 hours of your life here when it's not that great of a film. So I'd just say hold strong, wait a week, and I'll give you the go or no go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. Some good advice there, Christopher.
And I'm sure Steven will say to go no matter what, because he doesn't really care about your feelings or your money or your time. And me, time is money. This is a 2.5 hours that I will never get back, and we'll see if it's a good thing or a bad thing next week. And I'm praying, I'm hoping, I'm facing Mecca. I'm praying that this is gonna be good. Part 2 is gonna be good and worth my time.
Sure. Yeah. Anyway, if you're still listening, thanks. Uh, tell us what you thought of the movie. Tell us what you liked about it if you've seen it. And also, feel free to, if you want to email us, you can email us at thestalepopcornpod@gmail.com. Give us suggestions on what movies we should see. And follow us on Instagram and YouTube. We're on YouTube as well. Anything else, Christopher?
I guess if you're listening to this, you probably know that we have Spotify, but we also have Amazon Music, I believe.
We do have an Amazon Music, yeah.
Feel free to comment on our videos or Instagram if you have recommendations as well. But this is another long episode, so if you stayed this long, I'm proud of you. I thank you. I'm grateful for you. I'm ecstatic. I'm just real pleased, if you will.
All of
And
the emotions, positive
I'm just
emotions.
feeling all
Yeah.
sorts of emotions. I'm green with jealousy, red with anger, but Uh, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.
See you on the flippity flop. Bye.
Bye.